Hello again and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be coloring a flower out of Magical Dawn by Hanna Karlzon. And I'm going to show you how I have been coloring these beautiful flowers. So I'm going to start you off with this one, show you my technique, and hopefully you pick up on a few tips. Across the page I am protecting this this picture with tracing paper. So I've basically taken tracing paper and I've folded it over the other side, so it just holds it nice and securely. I don't want either page smudging onto each other until I've bought a fixative and can seal up the colors quite nicely. I've also placed underneath my working page a piece of cardstock just to help me press on so I don't cause any imprints on the other coloring pages. I'm using Prismacolors to color this flower in. I've got quite a broad range. So for the flowers we are using PC932, which is a violet. I'm using Peacock Blue, PC1027, and this is going to go over the violet. I'm using the violet as a shader, so just to really deepen the blue and make it quite dark. Then we've got light cerulean blue, PC904, followed by a cloud blue, PC1023, and I'm blending in a bit of putty beige, PC1083, in the lighter areas. So it's a bit of a blue going into a slightly creamy white, and not a white white. And then I've got the white, PC938, and this I'm using to blend into all the light areas. I've also got a black, PC935, which I will use to go over the lines again once each of the petals are complete, and it just re-deepens the whole picture. I went over the beadworks here with the black pencil and just added a bit more depth to them. It also just makes it stand out, looks cleaner. What I found with the Prismas, they often color and dull down the line art, and sometimes you want those lines to stay in. I'm not yet quite at the stage of getting rid of all the line art lines when I do a picture. And I'm aware that some artists like to take away the black lines. They prefer to use a white acrylic paint and just color over those. But I haven't reached that yet. I don't know if I will. This is a journey, and I'm taking you with me on my journey. So there are two options in coloring this flower. And when I looked on Pinterest at the different ways other people have colored this particular page, you often get people shading dark and then coming out light, dark going in light. And I did find another person's picture, and she had done the leaf petals with these creases almost a bit more like you would do fabric. So she would have a light on a dark and a light on a dark. I've kind of done a bit of a mix of the two. So I do start dark at the base of each petal, and then I pull it out, go light, and then over in these folds it's dark again. So it's a little bit of a mixture of both. Right, so let's get you started. I'm going to bring you lower down so you can see what I'm doing. Whoop. So we're just going to go in with the violets, and here you can see this petal is actually on top of this petal. So along here we're just going to put some of the violets, and this is to show that it's creating a shadow. And we can come all the way down the stamens. Gets a bit tricky with these stamens. This is dark. This is dark. So we're going to put some of the violet here. We're going to start very dark inside the flower, and we're going to bring the color out. So I'm going to cause a bit of a gradient. Along here, this petal is on top of this petal. So we're just going to, don't worry about the bubble circle things. We'll sort that out later. Okay. This is dark. Here. And by doing in between the stamens, it also helps separate which bits are stamen and which bits are flower. I'm not sure about that one. We'll leave it for now. So I hope you had a lovely Easter. We've had some pretty good weather, although it is a bit chilly outside. Quite a relaxed time. We had a friend stay over, so that was lovely. Just able to support them. All right, this leaf is over this leaf, so we're gonna bring some purple along here. In here. Now, the flower goes right into the crease of the book, so we're not going to actually be able to get into all of the flower, but we can do our best along this line here. So yeah, so in here, I'm not going to be able to get in. Okay, along here. Now on this side here, I had some of this black paint rub off onto the flower. So I've used a white Posca pen to just try and get rid of the black. So on this section, I'm going to improvise a little bit to kind of blend it out. So we'll see how that one goes. Up here. So I'm just using a light layer just to be able to get an idea of where I want my lights and my darks. Over here on this edge, I want it quite light because I wanted to contrast between the shadow on the other side of the petal. This side here is on top of this side, so we're going to also bring the black here. not the black, sorry, the violet. You can see this is all over, so the key with prismas is being very gentle with them and layers. But then again, to be honest, I find with most pencils, layers is the key to success. So I'm not the fastest of colorers, mainly because I like to get depth, and I enjoy getting tone out of my pencils, which is why you'll probably notice I don't actually release a lot of videos very quickly. I'm trying to do more than one complete page a month, so I'm pushing myself. How fast do you color? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any tips on how to improve speed, I'm happy to learn from you. And we're in this together. So here I'm not going to make all of this dark because some of the light is going to touch, and I want to create a bit of a fold effect. So over here. In this corner here. So like you would do material, it's light on dark, light on dark. I do like to use a dark purple to deepen my colors. I find it works really well. It's almost better than using black, because black can tone down your picture and make it kind of flat. Okay. So now we're going to come in with the PC 1027 Peacock Blue. And I'm going to go over all the purple with this blue. And I'm going to go out from the purple as well. So I'm going over it and bringing it out. And this is going to help me with my gradients, because you want to go from a dark blue into a creamy white blue. And I use little circles going round and round and just bring it out. Up here. Also, if you color lightly and you make a mistake, the prismas are quite easy to just erase a bit out. Just depends how many layers you've built up. So sometimes I go up and down like that, and other times I go around, just little circles. And I use the same idea for these folds of the leaves. And all you want is basically, as the petal folds onto itself, you want the tip of it light and the underneath it dark. And as long as you've got that idea, you're good to go. Let me know in the comments below if there are other things you would like me to show you how to color. You know, if you want me to show you how to color butterflies or leaves, gems. I can show you how to color gold. I quite enjoy coloring gold. So let me know, and if I don't know it, I'm happy to go and learn it and then show it to you. So going over all this purple with the peacock blue, pulling it out, getting that varying blue starting to happen now. Out a bit. And then on this side, we're going to make it light. So yeah, so here you can see I can't quite kind of get there. It's a bit tricky to get into these corners. Let me just bring this out. I apologize for any background noise you hear. My children are playing on the trampoline and probably having some imaginary fighting game going on. But kids will be kids. So I've just noticed this part here, I actually think is part of this stamen. So we're just going to go back to the violet and color this up here. And then the peacock blue over it. Because if you look at this line, it kind of is going down there. So, okay, so carrying on with the peacock blue, over your purple. So if you're new to Prismas, you want to apply a light pressure, because if you press too hard, you could easily snap the lead straight out of the wood. I don't particularly fancy experimenting, seeing if that actually happens. But I have heard from different colorists and artists when they tried their prismas and were getting the hang of it. They did experience some breaking because they pressed too hard. Plus, I don't think you really need to press hard. These are such lovely pencils, and they're really soft. So, you know, just a medium to light pressure is really all you need. And then just layer upon layer. Up, out. Oh, we forgot this section here. Let's just put a little bit of the violet underneath here and go over that with the peacock blue. So what I normally do when I start a picture, if I'm not sure how to color something, I will start with something I feel more comfortable with. So for example, when I started this picture, I began with leaves because I felt confident with the leaves, and I then moved on to do the beads and the moth or the fly, whichever one it is. And once I did that, and I had done a bit of research on Pinterest regarding, you know, different ways people had colored these flowers, I was then able to start. And I basically took it one petal at a time, and I used some pictures as inspiration and just as a bit of a reference until I felt a bit more confident. And then I started to just color. Now I'm going in with the PC904 light cerulean blue, and I'm going to go over all of these and out, and that's how I'm going to just blend this out. So, and all this does is it just deepens that blue, adds a bit more color, a bit more layers. And once you start getting quite a bit of layers on, you're able to actually smush all of them together, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. I'm not too worried about a very sharp point because I'm doing layers and I have quite a lot of surface to play with. So if you want to, what you can do is each petal one at a time, or you can do this way that I'm doing now, which is taking the same crayon, going over all the petals, and this, you know, repeat with the next crayon and the next color until I've reached the desired effect. I do a mix of both. For the sake of time and the video, I thought I would color the whole flower at the same time instead of doing each individual petal. So yeah, and you can, if you want smaller, more finer circles, you just go on the tip of the pencil and pull it out. Here. And also try and alternate the way you put down your layers. So if you're going down, even in circular motions, the next layer you want to go across. And this will help blend as well as smoothen out your layers. To build up your layers and smoothen them out. So you can try and bend and flatten the pages out to try and get into the very creases. I suppose what you could do is get a brush, and if you've got some watercolor or some water-soluble crayons, you could try and use a paintbrush and just paint into there. You just have to try and match your colors. All right, now I'm going to take the cloud blue and I'm going to just go over the whiter areas, just very, very lightly. And this is to create a light blue. Also, I want to put down some of the color onto this whiter area. So I'm just really creating like a base layer for the putty beige and then the white. So I'm not after a pure white, I'm after a bluey off-white sort of color in those light areas. So just very lightly. If I look at my dark areas, they're quite light, so we're going to go over them soon with our violet and our peacock blue, and just deepen up those shadowed areas. And the key with adult coloring, when you want to create that depth and almost realistic feel, you want to keep your lights light and your darks dark. So sometimes it's not always about adding more color as it is, you know, working on the darks, working on the lights, keeping those lights lighter and lighter, but contrasting them with your dark areas. And that contrast gives you that more realistic feel to your pages. And it, yeah, also it just adds depth, really. Just try and get in there. It's about as high as I can get. I think if you had a soft pastel and you could pick up, maybe wrap some cotton wool around a toothpick, you could probably use even eye makeup or soft pastel and try get into those creases. I don't really have that, so we'll just stick with pencil. But I don't see why that wouldn't work. I think it could actually work quite well. All you really want is just a spot of color, so it's not, you know, those sharp, uncolored white areas. Next, I'm going to go in with the peacock blue into all these dark areas, and I'm just going to deepen them. There we go. And then I'll go over those with the violet, and we'll just continue to deepen all these darks. And what you'll probably notice is the black lines on around here are kind of getting a little bit lost, and that's why later on, when we're almost done, we're going to take that black pencil and we're just going to go over it with the black pencil and just bring those lines back in. So keep adding our shadows. So where I had a bit of Posca paint here, you can see it's not holding the Prismacolor very well, but you know, it's not too bad. Alright, so just carrying on deepening each shadow area. So find in the very small areas here, it will be difficult to, you know, cross hatch. Which I think if I sharpen my pencil, I'd be able to do it a bit better. But I Don't want to really sharpen my pencil just yet. Don't forget every now and then just to rotate your pencil, and that helps to keep a bit of a sharp point. So you don't have to sharpen and sharpen and sharpen your pencil. Alright, so let's bring in some more of the violet. And what's so lovely is violet and blue works really well together. When you layer them on top of each other, it just creates like a darker blue. And I think it's actually quite pretty. So we just go into most of these. We don't need to go all the way up. You just want to lift some of the shadow up and over here. And then what we'll do is we'll use a different blue and we'll go over these areas, and it will still take away, it will leave that darker shadow line, but it will not take away a very strong purple, because we're not going for purple in here. We're going for more dark blue into light blue into a white. So yeah, we'll just shadow. Also, I find by using a lighter blue, I can then build up the gradient a bit more as well, so I don't lose the gradient. Right, I think we're almost done with this purple. Just a little bit more to go. As you can see, it's just bringing out these areas so nicely. So I personally don't use a colorless blender. I have used them in the past, and I think there are times where they do have their place. I found when I use a colorless blender, what would happen is I would lose the colors. You know, they would just become a bit more muted, and I personally like my colors vibrant and bold. So I learned to use either a lighter color, for example in this case it could be like the putty beige or the cloud blue, to blend and still keep the colors pretty good. And then I've also learned that white is a really great blending. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking the light cerulean blue, I'm going over that purple, and what it's going to do is it's just going to blend the peacock blue and the purple together and bring out a lighter blue. And I've put enough layers now where as I'm blending and layering, it's creating that blend and blurry smush together. Maybe there's a better word than smush, but yeah, I can't think of one right now. So let's just go through here, over here. Okay, so we want a little bit more purple, more of the violet here. So what I've done with these beads, I'm kind of treating them like I would earrings on a person's ears. So you would have a little bit of shadow on either side where the earring would go into the hole of the ear, you know, the pierced hole. So I'm kind of using a similar principle. So round circles, and in here round circles, and just blend it all out. As you can see, it's now got enough layers that it's starting to move the pigments wherever I put the pencil, and that's what we want, because that's going to take away this linear bumpy texture, which is really the tooth of the paper. And we don't want to burnish it, because the more layers you put on, the more vibrant your colors will become. And don't be afraid of going dark, or you know, worried that maybe you put too much, and you just keep layering it. If you keep contrasting your lights and your darks, you could put on layer upon layer on these pictures, and they will still look amazing, because you'll have a great tonal value while still maintaining the contrast between the shadows, the highlights, and the shaded areas. But if you're new to coloring, and you know, take your time. If you're not ready to do loads of layers, don't worry. You'll find when you're ready and more confident with the hobby, you'll naturally start wanting to layer. And even if you don't, it's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, you're coloring for you and not for anyone else, really. So you don't, you know, I really encourage you to not worry about comparing your work with somebody else's, or you know, comparison is not helpful, because we end up comparing our weak areas to someone else's strengths, and you know, that doesn't do us any justice, and it doesn't do the other person any justice. We're all different. We develop at different rates. And yeah, explore the areas that you want to explore, and create the pictures you want to create. I mean, if you like doing loads and loads of layers, then do that. If you don't, then opt for a small gradient. And challenge yourself on the areas that you want to learn. Because really, at the end of the day, this is it's like therapy for ourselves, and you know, if it keeps you happy and relaxed and healthy, then that's all that really counts. Who cares if you don't use 50 layers, or you know, if you don't color realistically. Like, some people don't like that, and that's okay. So I'm using the cloud blue, and I'm just gonna go over this now very lightly, because I'm getting ready to bring in my putty beige and my white. And I'm going to use my white to add more highlights. So these areas where the blue's kind of taking over, where I want the white highlights, I'm not going to fuss over it, because I know when I bring in my white pencil, I can easily push back some of this pigment, and I can still get my highlight. And then you can just change the direction as well, and it will pull out the pigment. So if there's a specific coloring page you'd like me to tackle with you and create it as a color along, let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to look into that. I do want to do a video showing you all my completed works and the books that I do have. I don't have a lot right now because I'm still new. I've only been coloring almost a year. But each book that I've got is a book that I really do like, and I want to completely color in full. But yeah, I'm happy to look into, if there's a specific image you'd like me to color in, happy to look into that for you. If I don't have it, happy to look and see where I can get it. And yeah, let's go on this journey together, you know. It's loads of fun to color with someone, and we can learn together and grow. All right, so now I'm going to bring in the Putty Beige, which is PC 1083, and just in these whiter areas, I'm just going to go in with it down my highlighted areas. So if you find that one of your coloring pages or something happens to your page and it leaves a smudge and you can't get it off with an eraser, I would recommend using a Posca paint just to remove the smudge. It's not brilliant because you end up not having as much tooth, but it's better than the white Signo Uniball pen, which actually scratches off when you use a pencil over it. If you hop onto Color My World, I think she has a video where she tests all the different whitening options. She covers the white Uniball Signo pen, Posca, and a few other options. So you can go check her out and see her tips for covering up lines using white. Alright, so this is looking great. So now what I'm going to do is go and get my whites, PC 938, and now I'm going to work on this blend. And what it does is it just lightens some areas. Now the thing with using white as a blending tool is it does milky your picture. So if you find that happening, and I'll show you what I'm going to do after I've finished with the white. I'm going to go over some of my darker areas and just add the color back. As you can see it makes it milky. So if I keep going, I get a bit more of a highlight. And if you are considering buying Prismacolors, I highly recommend buying the full sets. I was given the set of 172 and I've only used them for about a month, and I just absolutely love them, and I can totally understand why people will often recommend getting the full set. You just get so much range of color and really different colors, and you can create amazing color combinations with them. So it's definitely something worth saving for, you know. Look at it as an investment. They are expensive, but I think they're worth an investment. And if you look out for specials, You can pick them up for a bargain. And they also do give you, you can buy the pencils individually, which that is quite cool. I watched an artist talking about some do's and don'ts and ways of using and blending Prismacolor, and he suggested having several white pencils on hand, because using white as a bit of a blending tool instead of a colorless blender, you go through quite a bit of white. So I've already placed in my Amazon basket the single white Prismacolors, so I can keep a few white pencils on stock. And there you have it. This is how I've been coloring these flowers. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in with the peacock blue and just going into these areas where I've put the purple, because I've put quite a bit of purple and I want to create more of a blue than a purple. So I'm just going to go in here and use this to make it more of a blue than a purple. And then I'll show you how to do the stamens. I'm just going to take the liberty of just going into these folds as well. Alright. So as you can see, it just really deepens it up. And when we take the black and go over the black lines, you get an even better contrast. So this is by far my favorite coloring book. I just think the designs are just so much fun. And I've really had a lot of hours of just coloring joy with this book. Okay, so let's bring in the light cerulean blue again and just smoothen out some of these edges a bit more, because the white goes and milkies your color, so you might just need to add a bit more color on some of the areas. And it doesn't have to be a lot, just a touch, and it just brings that contrast back again. I'm going to take the putty beige into this corner and just create a little bit of a highlight, a bit of white. So it's not a strong highlight, but it's just a little, just a touch. So I try and keep layering and layering until it's quite a smooth finish on the paper. Right. Then I'm going to take the cloud blue and I'm just going to burnish a little bit in here just to remove any white spots. I personally don't like the white spots of the paper shining out. So you can use a medium pressure when you want to burnish. And if you get bits of wax coming off your paper, don't worry about it. Just give it a bit of a blow. You can use a makeup blush brush to just gently dust the wax off your page, and they're not terribly expensive. So just all right. I mean, if you notice any white bits in the white areas, you can just take your white pencil. And this is how you keep your lights light and your darks dark. And again, you can use the medium to light pressure. And the whole key is really your lights and darks. If you can get that right, and I'm not talking about a light source here, because your light source depends on the direction your light is going to be hitting the objects. So you could have your light coming from the top down, from the bottom up, from left or right, and that will determine where you put your lights and your darks. I'm just really talking about contrasting your light areas and your dark areas. Light sources is another area I'm hoping to continue to develop and work on. I think it can really make a picture amazing if one can get the light source correctly shown on a page. Okay, so now I'm done with my blues. I'm going to take my black pencil and I'm going to go over the black lines, the original black lines. And I just go slowly back and forth. Just take your time with it. Back and forth, just slowly making sure I'm getting the lines correctly. I just really go over the petal lines. I don't worry so much about the the lines in here. and more just trying to get that definition of each petal and where the petal is curling in on itself. So I just think it does make the picture. Sometimes I go the wrong way. So over here. So it gets a bit tricky where you've got quite a few layers of the Prismacolor over the original line. So that's where I just find going back and forth just helps redefine it and break through without causing the black pencil to slip. Back and forth. And you don't really want a very thick line either, so you just want to create it gently. You could use a very sharp pencil as well, so probably even sharper than this, and it would work quite well. So when I watch coloring videos, I sometimes watch other colorists. Sometimes I will watch artists. I don't really mind if it's a colorist or an artist, because to me they both teaching me the skills that I'm after. And yeah, I want to encourage you, like, you use Pinterest or Google and get ideas, reference photos and all of that, because it really does help you understand where you want to place your lights and your darks, how you want to build up your tonal values. Right, now onto the stamens. For the stamens, I'm using 70% grey or PC 1056, sepia PC 948, PC 943, which is a burnt ochre, and PC 1069, which is the 20% cool grey. And I'm going to use this to be my blender. So starting with your 70% warm grey, we're going to come here at the bottom and work our way up. Alright, so we're just going to do the base of each stamen. If you want to, you can use an electric eraser to remove some of the blue that might have gotten onto your stamens. I use a Tombow Mono Zero, and you just go through and just clean up all these stamens so that when you have your lighter stamen parts, it's not, it's pure, it's not tinged with blue and making a mud color. Alright, so just quickly erase all these blue bits. So just erase them as best as you can, and you know, don't worry if you can't get it out. So back in with the 70% warm, and all the 70% warm grey is going to do is just deepen the base of the stamens. And up here, all right. I mean, you can always go in with a bit of black if you want to really deepen it, but we'll see how we go. I find that the grey works quite well. Okay, so now I'm going to use the burnt ochre 943, and I'm going to go to the base and up and very lightly on the tips. So a bit dark on the edge and lighter. So, and I'm doing this because I want to have them, you know, I think orange works really well with blue, and if you look on your color wheel, it is a contrasting color. So this burnt ochre is a bit more of an orangey to it. And just lightly in the tips. Okay. So the idea that I'm going for is dark, medium, light tone. And by building up and going over the grey, what I'm doing is softening that grey. And we'll bring in a bit more brown so that it doesn't look grey and then orange. So with your color wheel, be careful with blues and oranges if you want to layer them on top of each other, because they can very quickly turn into mud. The same with purple and yellow. And that's why if you're doing something like an iridescent pearl effect, or you'll layer pink next to white and blue and green, but you won't necessarily mix blue and yellow because that will cause more green, or yellow and purple because that will turn into mud. So you just want to be aware of those things. All right, now I'm going to come in with the sepia 948 and just in the bases. And this is just going to deepen up the base of the stamens. You can also bring it in lightly up to the tips if you don't want it a very bright orange. It depends entirely on the effect you want. Alright, now I'm going to use the 20% Cool Grey, or PC 1069, and I'm going to blend this up. And if you find in the blending process it takes a bit too much of the orange out, you can always go back in with the burnt ochre and just add a little bit more color. If you prefer it a bit more muted and a bit more grey, then you can just leave it. It all depends entirely on the end result that you're after. I think I generally tend to just go in with a bit more color. Okay, so now I'm going to come back in with the burnt ochre and just on the tips to bring it out. So I don't want to go over the whole thing. I'm just going along the edge, bringing it out a bit. Edge, bringing it out. And then I'm going to go over the outline of each stamen with the black, and just to get it to stand out again. Just coming back down into some of the darker browns and just building up some layers there. And there we go. You can add a bit of black if you want to just deepen the tips, although it's not necessary really. Alright, so along the edges, just back and forth, just redefining each stamen. You probably want a finer point than what I have got here. So just going around, and then once we finish this, we'll do the dots. So around here, just to keep it defined. Around here. Here and down here. Oh. There goes my email. It's a bit slow going around over the outlines. I think it does help to make the picture. So just being aware of where each line has been, and kind of going over it really. You could probably also use a fine liner pen, and it would probably also work quite well. So there you have it. Now finally we're going to take a white Uniball Signo pen, and over here in the tip of the earrings, or petal rings, in each of the circles, just round and round. So what I used for the background was Neocolors, Neocolor 2s, and I used a damp sponge, and I just dabbed a dark grey and a light grey onto the background using a sponge. I did try to silver stars, but I decided that the silver made it too dark, so I opted for white instead. It didn't feel necessary to add more color to the page. You can also go over your background with Prismacolor if you like, or you could do more than one layer of Neocolor if you want a more opaque background. It's entirely up to you in the effect. I just did a single layer, and then where I wanted it a bit darker, I would just go in again with the sponge on using a darker color. And you can even add a bit here. And there you have it. Zoom out so you can see the whole page. And that is how I colored the blue flowers in Hanna Karlzon's Magical Dawn. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and to get more tutorials very similar to this one, as well as to see any color alongs that I do. Thanks for watching and for joining me. Bye for now.